The first time Elaine stabbed her husband, it was an accident, or at least that's what she told herself. The knife had been in her hand for chopping onions, her fingers slick with the residue of red wine and sweat from the July heat, and Henry had crept up behind her like he always did, thinking it funny to scare her. She turned too fast. The blade went into his side, and he let out a soft "oh," like a surprised breath escaping. Then he collapsed. She stared at him for a long time, her mouth open, trembling hands hovering near the blood spreading across the tiled kitchen floor. It didn't feel real. None of it did. She dropped the knife, called 911, and knelt beside him, whispering apologies through tears. But by the time the ambulance arrived, Henry was gone, or so she thought. The body was taken away. Police questions buzzed around her like mosquitoes. She wore guilt like a second skin, unbearable and suffocating. But no one charged her. They ruled it an accident. She attended the funeral alone, sitting in the front pew with a blank expression as everyone offered pitying glances. That night, she couldn't sleep. The bed was too big without him. The silence was too loud. She kept expecting to hear his voice, his laughter, the way he'd hum while brushing his teeth. At around 3:14 a.m., she sat up in the darkness, the shadows thick around her like fog, and she heard something, the creak of the front door opening. She froze. Footsteps followed. Measured. Familiar. Her heart thundered against her ribcage as she reached for the bat they kept under the bed, except she didn't keep it anymore. That was Henry's idea. Her fingers clutched only air. The bedroom door creaked open, and he stood there, Henry. His shirt was blood-stained. His face pale, but unmistakably alive. No sign of pain. No wound. Just Henry, smiling the way he always did when he came home late and wanted to smooth things over with a joke. "Hey, babe," he said. Elaine screamed. She backed against the headboard, pulling the blanket around her like it could protect her. He stepped forward slowly, cautiously, as if she were the ghost. She blinked rapidly, thinking she was dreaming or hallucinating, but the floor creaked under his weight. She could smell his cologne, spicy, musky. "He was real. I don't understand," she whispered. You died." Henry raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" She couldn't sleep that night. Henry lay beside her, snoring softly as if nothing had happened. By morning, his wound was gone, his skin warm, and he kissed her on the forehead like every morning before, but Elaine couldn't let it go. She checked the news. The obituary. Called the funeral home. They all said the same thing: he had died. There was even a burial. She had been there. So had the others. Yet here he was, drinking his coffee, reading the newspaper, humming that same god-awful tune from the radio. She tried to ask him questions, but he dodged them. Must have been a bad dream, he'd say with a smirk. That night, she tried again. She waited until he was asleep. Took the same kitchen knife. Pressed it to his chest with trembling fingers. "I'm sorry," she whispered. This time, she made sure it wasn't an accident. She waited for him to die. Waited for the final breath. She stared at the blood soaking the white sheets, hands red, chest heaving. She waited hours. No movement. She wrapped him in a sheet, dragged him to the garage, and left him there. By morning, the garage was empty. She screamed again. There he was, frying eggs, sipping orange juice, smiling like he always did. Every night, Elaine killed her husband, and every morning, he came back. At first, she thought she was cursed. Some punishment from a god she stopped believing in. But as the days went on, she noticed something else. Each time he returned, he was slightly different. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He got little details wrong: how many sugars she took in her tea, her favorite movie, the name of her sister. He began calling her darling, a word he'd never used in 10 years of marriage. His voice would occasionally glitch, stutter mid-sentence like a skipping record. The real Henry was gone. Whatever this was, it was something else. She kept a journal. Recorded each murder. Documented each return. Slashes. Stabbings. A gun once. Poison. She tried to destroy the body each time. Fire. Acid. even buried him 20 feet deep in the woods one stormy night. He always came back, and always smiling. The worst was the time she strangled him. It took nearly 9 minutes. She watched the life leave his eyes. That night, he came back and whispered, "That was fun." Before kissing her hand, Elaine grew cold, detached. She stopped crying, stopped asking questions. Her house turned into a prison. Locks, chains, boarded windows. She couldn't run, couldn't kill him, couldn't live with him, couldn't prove anything. She was trapped with a man wearing her husband's face. One night, she tried something else. She didn't kill him. Instead, she let him live. Observed. Played along, and the thing pretending to be Henry seemed confused. He paced more. Mumbled under his breath. Stared at her when he thought she wasn't looking. Once, she caught him watching her sleep, his eyes wide open, unblinking, until dawn. She pretended not to notice. The next night, she whispered to the thing beside her, "I know you're not him." The creature didn't respond. "But you remember what I did to you," she said. Still silence. Then slowly, he turned to her, and for the first time, the smile dropped. "I always remember," he whispered, voice layered with something inhuman. "And I'm learning." Elaine's blood turned to ice. She didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, he was back to normal. Frying eggs. Humming. Smiling. But his eyes never left hers. She packed a suitcase. Booked a flight. Left without saying goodbye. She made it 3 towns over before he showed up again. Sitting in the motel lobby. Reading a newspaper upside down. "You forgot your toothbrush," he said. She left the country. Different name. Fake passport. New life. She lasted a month. Then one day, she opened the door to her apartment in Prague, and he was sitting at the kitchen table. "I missed you," he said, holding a cup of tea. Elaine didn't scream. She just closed the door quietly and walked to the balcony. But he followed her. "You can't run from what you made," he said. "What are you?" "I'm yours." She turned to face him. "What do you want?" He grinned. "For you to stop pretending." He moved toward her. She reached into her coat pocket. A small vial of acid. She smashed it against his face. He melted. Screamed. She ran. 2 weeks later, he knocked on her door again. Face perfect, and smiling. Elaine didn't know how long she could keep going. Her hands trembled every time she touched a door handle. Every reflection became a threat. Every breath felt stolen. The man-thing who wore her husband's face always came back. And every return chipped away at what remained of her sanity. She moved constantly now. Hostels. Motels. Sleepless nights in airports. Bus stations. Crowded subways. Places where people surrounded her, where she felt less alone, less likely to be isolated with him. But still, no matter how far she ran, he always found her. He never forced his way in. He simply appeared. Sometimes on the opposite park bench. Sometimes walking past her on a quiet street. And once, standing in a mirror reflection that didn't match her movements, she tried to tell herself he couldn't hurt her, but he already had. He was erasing her. One day, she called her sister. They hadn't spoken in months. Her sister picked up on the second ring. "Elaine? Is everything okay?" "I need help," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause. "Elaine, I thought you were dead." Elaine's stomach dropped. "What?" "We had your funeral. Months ago. Don't you remember?" The call cut off. She stared at her phone. The contact name had changed to unknown. Her entire call log was blank. Photos on her phone gone. Her own image in the selfie camera flickered for a moment, and for a fraction of a second, it wasn't her face. It was his. She smashed the phone against the wall. She had to go somewhere no one knew her. Somewhere impossible to find. She cashed out all her money, changed her name again, and bought a one-way ferry ticket to a remote fishing village she'd only heard of once through an overheard conversation in a diner. The village was gray, windswept, and silent. Just under 50 residents. No cell towers. No visitors. No mirrors in the small cabin she rented. Just wood, salt air, and time. She thought maybe, just maybe, she'd finally left him behind, For 2 weeks, she heard nothing. She almost smiled again. Then one night, while reading by oil lamp, she heard 3 gentle knocks on her door. The rhythm of them turned her stomach cold. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. A 4th knock, slow. Patient. Familiar. She stood slowly, picked up the axe she kept beside the bed, and crept toward the door. The 5th knock didn't come. Only silence. She flung the door open. No one there, just the cold sea wind and the black silhouette of the waves crashing against the cliff below. She turned around, and he was inside, standing behind the oil lamp. Casting no shadow. Found you, he whispered. This time, she didn't scream. She ran toward him, axe raised high and swung. It cleaved straight through him like he was fog. His image shimmered, then corrected itself. He smiled. You're not afraid anymore, he said. Good. That makes it easier. I'm not afraid of you, she spat. I'm not the one you should be afraid of. He stepped closer, and the flame of the oil lamp danced wildly, then went out. She stood in the darkness, heart racing, waiting. His voice came from every corner of the cabin. I was made by you. Built by your rage. Your regret. Your hatred. I am the memory you won't let go. A soft light sparked. A match. He was standing behind her, holding it. You don't want to forget him, he said. That's why I'm still here. She stared into his eyes, her husband's eyes, and for the first time, saw something beneath them. Pain. Loneliness. Emptiness. The thing wearing Henry's face wasn't just haunting her. It was trapped. She dropped the axe. Then what do you want from me? She whispered. To be free. How? His smile faltered. He looked uncertain. It was the first time he didn't have an answer. She stepped forward, inches from him. Then let's end it. Both of us. She grabbed his hand. It was cold, smooth, and too perfect. She held it anyway and led him to the edge of the cliffs outside. The wind screamed around them. The ocean roared like a hungry god. If I jump, she said, do you go with me? He didn't respond. She closed her eyes and stepped off the edge. The water swallowed her whole. She woke up the next morning, dry, in her bed, with him beside her. He smiled. I told you. I always come back. She stared at the ceiling. Her chest was hollow. Her soul cracked in places that couldn't be named. She wasn't sure what was left to try, until she remembered the cabin in the woods. An old place she and Henry once stayed during a bitter winter. Before everything changed. Before the accidents. Before the resentment. She remembered laughing by the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket, holding cocoa between cold fingers. She remembered love. Real love. She bought a train ticket the next morning. The cabin was still there. The key still worked. Inside was dust, old furniture, and a half-burned log in the stone fireplace. She sat in silence, breathing it all in. He appeared by nightfall. He didn't say anything. Just stood in the doorway. She gestured to the couch. Sit. He did. They stared at each other. I think I know what you are, she said. Then say it. You're the part of him I couldn't forgive. And the part of me that wouldn't let go. He nodded. I never wanted to hurt him, she said, voice breaking. But I did. Over and over again. With words. With silence. With distance. So you hurt me, he said. I thought if I killed you enough times, I'd kill that part of myself too. You didn't. I know. He looked down at his hands. The skin shimmered faintly. His edges flickered. I'm not real anymore, he said. But you are. She reached across the couch and took his hand again. I'm sorry. He blinked slowly. Tears welled in his eyes. So am I. The fire cracked in the hearth, and for the first time since that night with the knife, he began to fade, not melt, not glitch, not scream, just dissolve, like breath in the cold. Elaine sat by the fire until morning. The sun rose slowly. The world quiet. She checked every room of the cabin. He was gone, really gone. She went home the next day. The real home. Her home. She planted roses in the backyard, where the sun always hit in the afternoon. She kept the mirror in the hallway covered, just in case. But weeks passed. Then months. And she never saw him again. Every now and then, she heard footsteps at 3:14 a.m. But when she checked the door, no one was ever there, just the wind, and sometimes, the faintest whisper of a smile.